Welcome back to Easy English Talk Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Easy English Talk Podcast, everyone. We are so glad you're here with us today. Priya, hey, how are you doing? How's your week been so far?
Hey, Ryan. Honestly, it has been a really busy week for me. I have been reading a lot and preparing for today's episode, but I am feeling good now, and I'm happy to be here. How about you? How has your day been?
My day's been pretty calm, actually. I had some time to think and plan, and I think that helped me feel more ready for today's conversation. So yeah, I'm in a good place. Before we get into today's discussion, I want to speak to everyone who is listening right now or watching this episode.
Yes, please do. I always love when you connect with the audience first. It makes the whole conversation feel more real and personal, like we're all sitting together and talking about something that matters.
So to all of you out there, wherever you're watching or listening from, whether it's the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, or any other part of the world, we want to hear from you. Please drop a comment and tell us where you are joining from today. We would love to know.
And also, while you're at it, please let us know if this podcast is helping you. Is it helping you improve your English? Is it helping you understand important topics better? Your feedback really means a lot to us, and it helps us make better episodes for you.
Absolutely. Your thoughts, your comments, they truly guide us. So do not be shy. Share whatever's on your mind. Now, Priya, today's topic is a little different from what we usually talk about. We thought about this one carefully, and we both agreed that it is something important that should be discussed.
I completely agree, Ryan. This is not our usual kind of topic, but I think it is one that many people around the world are curious about. It's a topic that comes up again and again in the news, and a lot of people do not fully understand the reasons behind it.
That's exactly right. And I think by the end of this episode, our listeners will have a much clearer picture of this subject. So, today we're discussing why America will never stop supporting Israel.
And I want to say something right away. If you have ever watched the news and wondered why the United States always stands with Israel, no matter what happens, then this episode is for you. We are going to break it down in a simple, clear, and thoughtful way.
Yes, and if you stay with us until the end, you will understand the deep reasons behind this relationship. These are reasons that go back many decades, and they involve history, politics, money, religion, and strategy. So there's a lot of value here for you.
Exactly. And we are not here to take sides or tell anyone what to think. We're here to explain and help you understand. That's what this podcast is always about, learning English and learning about the world at the same time.
Perfect. So let's begin. Priya, I think the first thing we should talk about is the basic question. Why do so many people around the world find this relationship confusing or even surprising?
That's a great place to start. I think the confusion comes from the fact that the United States gives Israel a very large amount of support, more than it gives to almost any other country, and many people wonder why. They wonder what makes Israel so special in the eyes of America.
Right. And it's not just about saying nice things. The United States gives Israel billions of dollars every year, mostly in military aid. It also protects Israel in the United Nations by using something called the veto power. So the support is very real and very strong.
Yes, and this support continues no matter which political party is in power in America. Whether it's a Democrat or a Republican president, the support for Israel stays the same. That is what makes people ask the deeper question, why is this so constant?
And that's what we are going to explore. Let's start with history, because I think history is the foundation of this whole relationship. Priya, can you take us back to the beginning? How did this connection between America and Israel start?
Of course. So Israel was created as a country in 1948, after the Second World War and the terrible events of the Holocaust, where millions of Jewish people were killed in Europe. There was a strong global feeling that Jewish people needed a safe homeland.
And the United States was one of the very first countries to officially recognize Israel as a new nation. That happened just minutes after Israel declared its independence. So from the very first moment, America was involved.
That's right. And that early decision set the tone for everything that came after. The United States saw itself as a supporter and protector of this new country. Over time, that role became deeper and stronger, especially during the Cold War.
Ah, the Cold War. That's a very important part of this story. For people who may not know, the Cold War was a long period of tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. It lasted from roughly 1947 to 1991.
And during that time, the world was divided into two sides, countries either aligned with the United States or with the Soviet Union. The Middle East was a very important region during the Cold War because of its oil and its location. America needed strong allies in that region.
And Israel became one of those strong allies. While some other countries in the Middle East were moving closer to the Soviet Union, Israel remained firmly on the side of the United States. That made Israel very valuable to America's global strategy.
Exactly. And once that alliance was built during the Cold War, it never really went away. Even after the Cold War ended, the relationship continued to grow. It had already become too deep and too important to change.
So history really laid the groundwork. But let us move to another major reason, and that is strategic interest. Priya, why is Israel so important to America from a strategic point of view?
Well, the Middle East is one of the most important regions in the world for many reasons. It has oil, it has key shipping routes, and it is located at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa. For the United States, having a strong and reliable ally in that region is extremely valuable.
And Israel is seen as that reliable ally. It has a strong military, a stable government compared to some of its neighbors, and it shares a lot of intelligence and military information with the United States. That kind of partnership is not easy to find.
Right. Intelligence sharing is a big one. Israel has one of the most advanced intelligence agencies in the world called Mossad. The information that Israel shares with America helps the United States keep track of threats in the region and beyond.
So it is not just that America is helping Israel. Israel is also helping America. It's a two-way relationship in many ways. Both countries benefit from working closely together on security and intelligence matters.
That is a really important point. Many people only see one side of it, the money and weapons going from America to Israel. But behind the scenes, there's a deep exchange of information, technology, and military cooperation that benefits both countries.
Now, let us talk about another huge factor, and that is the politics inside the United States. Priya, how does American domestic politics play a role in this support for Israel?
This is one of the most important parts of the whole story. Inside the United States, there are very powerful groups and organizations that work hard to make sure that American politicians continue to support Israel. These groups are often called lobbying organizations.
One of the most well-known is called AIPAC, which stands for the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. This organization has a lot of influence in American politics. It supports politicians who are friendly toward Israel and puts pressure on those who are not.
And it's not just AIPAC. There are many other organizations, donors, and political action committees that focus on maintaining strong ties with Israel. Politicians in America know that supporting Israel can help them get elected, and opposing Israel can cost them politically.
That is a very real factor. In American elections, especially at the national level, a candidate's position on Israel can be a deciding issue for many voters and donors. So most politicians from both parties choose to support Israel strongly.
And this creates a cycle. Because politicians support Israel to win elections, the policy never changes. And because the policy never changes, the relationship keeps getting stronger. It becomes a self-reinforcing system.
That is a great way to put it, a self-reinforcing system. Now, Priya, let us talk about another huge factor, and that is the role of religion in this relationship.
Yes, this is a fascinating and important part. In the United States, there is a large group of Christians, often called evangelical Christians, who believe very strongly in supporting Israel. Their support comes from their religious beliefs.
Can you explain that a little more? Why do evangelical Christians feel so connected to Israel?
Sure. Many evangelical Christians believe that the land of Israel was promised to the Jewish people by God, as described in the Bible. They also believe that the existence of Israel is part of a divine plan. Because of this belief, they see supporting Israel as a religious duty.
And this is not a small group. Evangelical Christians make up a very large portion of the American population, especially in southern and midwestern states. Their political influence is enormous, and their support for Israel is very firm.
Exactly. So when we talk about why America supports Israel, we cannot ignore this religious dimension. It adds a layer of emotional and spiritual commitment that goes beyond politics and strategy. For many Americans, supporting Israel feels like the right thing to do on a deep personal level.
That is really interesting. So we have history, strategy, domestic politics, and religion. All of these are working together. But there is another important factor I want to discuss, and that is the military and defense industry connection.
Oh, this is a big one. The United States gives Israel roughly $3.8 billion in military aid every year. That's a huge amount of money. But here's something many people don't realize. A large part of that money comes back to the United States.
Right, because most of that military aid must be spent on American-made weapons and equipment. So the money goes from the American government to Israel, and then Israel uses that money to buy products from American defense companies.
Exactly. Companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Raytheon benefit enormously from this arrangement. They make fighter jets, missiles, and other military equipment that Israel buys. So the defense industry in America has a strong financial interest in keeping this aid flowing.
And those defense companies also have a lot of political influence. They donate to political campaigns, they lobby Congress, and they create jobs in many states across America. So cutting aid to Israel would not just be a foreign policy decision. It would also affect the American economy and American jobs.
That is such an important point. The relationship between America and Israel is not just about friendship or shared values. It is also deeply connected to money, industry, and jobs. That makes it very hard to change, even if some people want to.
Now, let us talk about something else that keeps this relationship strong, and that is shared values, or at least the idea of shared values. Priya, what do people mean when they say America and Israel share the same values?
Well, both countries describe themselves as democracies. Both countries have elections, courts, free press, and individual rights, at least in principle. American leaders often say that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, and that this makes Israel a natural partner.
And that idea of shared democratic values is very powerful in American politics. Americans tend to feel more comfortable supporting countries that they see as similar to themselves. The idea that Israel is a fellow democracy makes the support feel justified and right to many Americans.
However, it is worth noting that this narrative is not without criticism. Some people argue that the situation is more complicated than that, especially when it comes to how different groups of people are treated. But politically, the shared values argument remains very strong and very effective.
That is true. And in politics, the story that people believe often matters as much as the full reality. The story of shared values has been told for decades, and it has become a core part of how Americans think about Israel.
Absolutely. And once a story like that becomes part of a nation's identity, it is very difficult to change. It would require a huge shift in how Americans see the world and their role in it.
Now, Priya, I want to talk about the United Nations for a moment, because this is another area where American support for Israel is very visible. Can you explain what happens at the United Nations?
Sure. The United Nations has a body called the Security Council, which has 5 permanent members. The United States is one of them. These 5 members have something called veto power, which means they can block any resolution they do not agree with.
And the United States has used its veto power many, many times to protect Israel from resolutions that criticize Israel or call for action against Israel. In fact, the United States has used its veto to block more resolutions related to Israel than on almost any other topic.
That is right. And this sends a very strong message to the world. It tells other countries that no matter what happens, the United States will stand by Israel on the international stage. It makes Israel feel protected, and it makes other countries feel frustrated.
And this veto power is important because it means that even if most countries in the world disagree with something Israel does, the United States can prevent any official action from being taken. That is a very powerful form of support.
It is. And it shows just how deep this commitment goes. It's not just about money or weapons. It's about using America's global power and position to shield Israel from international consequences. That level of protection is very rare in international relations.
All right, so we have talked about many reasons why America supports Israel. Let us now talk about whether this could ever change. Priya, do you think there is any realistic chance that the United States would ever stop supporting Israel?
Honestly, based on everything we've discussed, it seems very unlikely, at least in the near future. The forces that keep this relationship going are so deep and so interconnected that it would take a massive change in American society and politics to shift this.
I agree. Think about it. You would need to change the political system, the lobbying structure, the defense industry interests, the religious beliefs, the strategic calculations, and the historical narrative all at the same time. That is almost impossible.
And even when there are voices in America that question this support, they are usually pretty quickly pushed to the side. Politicians who speak up about it often face serious political consequences, so there is a strong pressure to stay in line.
That is a very important point. The political cost of questioning support for Israel is very high in America, and the political reward for supporting Israel is also very high, so the incentives all point in one direction.
Right. And we should also mention that public opinion in America, while slowly shifting in some areas, is still largely supportive of Israel. Many Americans grow up hearing positive things about Israel, and those views are reinforced by media, education, and culture.
That is true. The cultural connection is something we haven't talked about yet. There are many cultural ties between America and Israel. Many Americans have visited Israel, many Jewish Americans have family connections to Israel, and there's a strong emotional bond.
And the Jewish American community, while relatively small in numbers, is very influential in many areas of American life, including media, finance, law, and politics. This is not a negative thing. It is simply a reality that contributes to the strength of the relationship.
Right, and it's important to say this clearly. We are not saying this to criticize anyone. We're simply explaining the different factors that make this relationship so strong. Understanding these factors is important for anyone who wants to understand global politics.
Exactly. Our goal is always to inform and to help people think clearly. This topic requires careful and respectful discussion, and we hope we're doing that well today.
I think we are. Now, Priya, let us talk about one more thing. How does this relationship affect the broader Middle East and the rest of the world?
That is a very big question. The strong relationship between America and Israel has a major impact on the entire Middle East. It affects how other countries in the region see the United States. Some countries feel that America is not a fair or balanced player because of its close ties to Israel.
And that perception creates tension. Countries and groups that are in conflict with Israel often feel that the United States is biased, that it supports one side and ignores the other. This can make peace efforts more difficult.
Yes, many people argue that lasting peace in the Middle East requires the United States to be a more balanced mediator. But because of all the factors we discussed, being balanced on this issue is very difficult for any American leader.
And this has real consequences. The ongoing conflicts in the region, the suffering of many people, and the lack of a lasting peace agreement are all connected, at least in part, to this dynamic. It is a complicated and painful situation.
It is, and I think it is important for our listeners to understand that global politics is never simple. There are always many layers, many interests, and many perspectives. This topic is a perfect example of that complexity.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you something, Priya. When you look at this topic as a whole, what stands out to you the most?
I think what stands out to me the most is how many different forces are working together to keep this relationship going. It is not just one reason. It is history, religion, money, strategy, politics, and culture, all combined. That is what makes it so strong and so hard to change.
I feel the same way. And I think that is an important lesson for our listeners, not just about this topic, but about how the world works in general. Big things in global politics are almost never caused by just one factor. There are always multiple forces at play.
That is a wonderful insight, Ryan, and I hope our listeners take that lesson with them. When you read the news or hear about a global issue, always ask yourself, what are the different factors behind this? You'll usually find that the truth is more complex than it first appears.
Well said. Now, let us also talk about something that is slowly changing, even if the overall relationship remains strong. Priya, are there any new trends in American society that might affect this in the long run?
Yes, there are some interesting trends. Among younger Americans, there seems to be a growing willingness to ask questions about this relationship. Younger voters are more likely to say that the United States should be more balanced in its approach to the Middle East.
That is true, and social media has played a role in this. Younger people have more access to different perspectives and information than previous generations. They can see videos, read stories, and hear voices from all sides of the conflict.
Exactly. And this greater access to information is slowly changing how some Americans think about these issues. But it is important to say that this shift is still very small compared to the overall political and institutional forces that support the relationship.
Right. So while there may be a slow shift in public opinion, especially among young people, the political structures, the lobbying groups, the defense industry, and the religious communities that support this relationship are still very powerful.
And change in politics usually happens very slowly. Even if public opinion shifts over time, it takes years or even decades for that shift to translate into actual policy changes. So, for the foreseeable future, the American support for Israel is likely to remain very strong.
That brings us to another interesting question. How should other countries and people around the world respond to this reality? Priya, what do you think?
I think the most important thing is understanding. When people understand why things are the way they are, they can respond more wisely. Anger and frustration are natural reactions, but understanding the root causes helps people think more clearly about what actions might actually be effective.
I agree completely. And for our listeners who are learning English and learning about the world, I think this episode is a good example of how to approach a difficult topic. You listen, you learn, you ask questions, and you form your own thoughts based on information, not emotion.
Beautifully said, Ryan. And I want to add that it is okay to have strong feelings about this topic. Many people around the world feel very strongly about it. But strong feelings are most useful when they are combined with clear understanding.
Yes, feelings plus understanding. That is a powerful combination. Now, Priya, before we start to wrap up, is there anything else you want to add about this topic?
I think I would just say that this relationship between America and Israel is one of the most important relationships in modern global politics. Understanding it helps you understand so many other things that happen in the world, from conflicts in the Middle East to decisions at the United Nations to American elections.
That's a great point. This is not just an isolated topic, it connects to so many other issues, and that's why we felt it was important to discuss it on this podcast, even though it's a little different from our usual topics.
Absolutely. And I hope our listeners feel that they have learned something valuable today. Even if this topic is sensitive, I believe that open and respectful discussion is always better than silence or confusion.
I could not agree more. Now, let us now take a moment to look at what we've covered today. We started by looking at the history of this relationship, going back to 1948 and the creation of Israel, and how the Cold War made this alliance even stronger.
Then we talked about the strategic importance of Israel to the United States. Having a strong and reliable ally in the Middle East is very valuable for America's global interests. The intelligence sharing and military cooperation are key parts of this.
We also discussed the powerful role of domestic politics in America. Lobbying groups, political donations, and the political cost of questioning support for Israel all keep this policy in place, regardless of which party is in power.
And we talked about the religious dimension, how tens of millions of evangelical Christians in America believe that supporting Israel is part of their faith. This adds an emotional and spiritual layer that goes beyond normal politics.
We explored the defense industry connection, how billions of dollars in military aid flow from America to Israel and then back to American defense companies. This creates economic incentives that make the relationship very hard to change.
We discussed the shared values narrative, the idea that America and Israel are both democracies with similar principles. And we talked about how America uses its veto power at the United Nations to protect Israel from international criticism.
And finally, we looked at whether this relationship could ever change. We noted that while there are some slow shifts in public opinion, especially among younger Americans, the overall forces keeping this relationship strong are still very powerful.
That is a really thorough summary, Ryan. I think we covered this topic in a fair, clear, and helpful way, and I hope our listeners feel the same.
I hope so too. And I want to say thank you to everyone who has listened to this entire episode. We know this was a longer and more serious conversation, but we truly believe it was worth your time.
Yes, thank you so much for staying with us. Your time and attention mean everything to us. And remember, every episode you listen to is helping you improve your English and expand your understanding of the world.
That is the beauty of this podcast. You are learning a language and learning about life at the same time. There is no better way to grow than that.
I love that, Ryan, and I want to encourage everyone to keep going. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep asking questions. That is how you become stronger, both in English and in life.
Absolutely. And before we go, if you enjoyed this episode or learned something new, please let us know in the comments. Tell us what you think. Tell us what topics you want us to cover next. We read every single comment, and your feedback helps us create better content for you.
Yes, please do. Your voice matters to us. And if you know someone who is also learning English or who would enjoy this kind of thoughtful discussion, please share this episode with them. It really helps our podcast reach more people.
And one more thing, if you have not already explored the other episodes on the Easy English Talk podcast channel, we really encourage you to do so. We have many episodes covering different topics, and each one is designed to help you improve your English while learning something meaningful.
That is right. Whether you're interested in self-growth, world events, communication skills, or understanding people better, we have episodes that can help you. So take some time to look through the channel and find the ones that interest you the most.
We promise you will find something valuable. Every episode is made with care, and our goal is always to help you grow. So go ahead, explore, and enjoy. We'll be here with more episodes for you very soon.
Thank you again, everyone. It has been a wonderful conversation today, Ryan. I really enjoyed it, even though the topic was a serious one. I feel like we handled it with respect and clarity.
I feel the same way, Priya. Thank you for being such a thoughtful co-host. And thank you to all our amazing listeners around the world. Take care of yourselves, keep learning, and we will see you in the next episode of the Easy English Talk podcast. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone. Stay curious, stay kind, and keep growing. We will talk to you again very soon. Take care.